Hi, everybody. I'm John Cowan. I am the co-founder and CEO of a local Raleigh startup called EDJX. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our technology and how we are interfacing with the emerging next-gen RFID technology and where we see the convergence of next-gen RFID technology and edge computing. So without further ado, I am going to start my slide deck here, which you should see up on the screen now. We affectionately refer to ourselves as the Infinite Edge at EDJX, and the reason why we do so is because we are squarely focused at EDJX on the problem of the fourth internet, or this trillion or so connected things over the next decade that will make up the entire internet economy. My co-founder and I got into this business in trying to solve for edge in the Internet of Things because we did the math and figured out that this generation of the internet would dwarf everything that came before it. As pioneers in the cloud computing era, we thought that was a pretty big deal, but it will not hold a candle to what the next decade plus will hold for the internet as we try and connect a trillion things as ultimate users of computers and storage and network connectivity. Our ambition at EDJX is to enable edge everywhere, to put computers, high performance computers, everywhere within 1,000 feet of a connected thing, to solve for the extreme latency as well as cost-benefit ratio that needs to be achieved in order for this entire world of IoT, whether we're talking about autonomous machines like cars and drones or robots, or the next generation humanless factories. All of that will require ultra-low latency, ultra-low cost infrastructure located in close proximity to where data is emanating in the Internet of Things. So big ambition for EDJX in putting computers everywhere. And when we got to work on solving this, we invented something called the Edgenet. The Edgenet is a patented peer-to-peer content address storage network that makes code and data that developers and sensors push to our network available everywhere and anywhere it's needed at planet scale. Kind of like the way the internet works for routing tables, but for code and data and content. Very exciting technology, and we're off to the races as a startup. Building out compute nodes on the Edgenet, literally everywhere in the world today. And what's interesting about our technology as well is that there's a feature that allows us to implement a certain security measure for IoT. Obviously, in the world of the Internet of Things, security is a big deal. We're moving out of the realm of abstract applications like AirMeet and online spreadsheets and Facebook.com to a world where software on the internet can sometimes mean the difference between life and death. If you think about code being responsible for a car driving down the road or Amazon's drone delivering your package, safety and security become a really big deal. And so a feature function of Edgenet is something we call edge notary, the ability to uniquely secure code and data at the edge. What we're able to provide is cryptographic assurance that the data or the code that was written to the network is in fact the code or data that was intended to be there. We believe that that technology unlocks the $1 trillion opportunity in the edge economy. We're super excited about it. But with that said, there comes a challenge. So the success of Edgenet for us internally at EDJX created what I would call a massive asset management challenge. It's one thing to have millions of servers out there acting in concert with one another to deliver value-added services to edge developers. It's quite another thing to figure out how you're going to manage the asset refresh and life cycle of such a large distributed peer-to-peer network. So I got to talking with our friends at Trilliot, and I drew this little chart on my screen, and I said, look, what I really want to be able to do here is plot the curve of my assets over time like I would normally do with an asset depreciation schedule. And then I want to be able to quantify the market value of that asset and find the intersection, what I would call the real-time mark-to-market asset value, or the optimal time to refresh the assets that are on the Edgenet located everywhere in the world. And so we got to thinking about this hypothesis that maybe it's possible for us to rethink asset lifecycle. What if we could intelligently and dynamically match supply and demand of assets without the need for Web 2.0 search? And by that, what I mean is a system telling me that, you know what, the assets that are located in Lower Manhattan are optimal to refresh now because the secondary market is of peak value. I don't want to be logging into Web 2.0 platforms like eBay, for instance, to go find a buyer for assets, particularly with the quantity of assets that EDJX has under management. Also, is it possible to automate the transaction and logistics without any human intervention? Can we get to a world where asset refresh is a fully automated end-to-end transaction? So this is the research framework that we kind of set forward as we started to explore the kind of solutions that would lead to this outcome, or at least a thorough test of this hypothesis. And the first salvo that we created is something called EdgeOps that we've built in conjunction with our partners at Trilliot. The EdgeOps V1 prototype establishes, using EDJX technology, a mutable asset record on the network as a single source of truth for the supply chain. And what we think we can do with this capability is to track and control all the asset records over the operational lifecycle. If I've got millions of servers out there on the Edgenet that exist for potentially years at a time, I need to be able to have command and control of that. That's beyond what is, you know, Web 2.0 capabilities. Also, we need to be able to support multidimensional view. It's not just the asset record from an RFID tag. Maybe it's telemetry data that needs to be fused with a record, so I have a multidimensional picture of an individual asset. Ultimately, my CFO wants to improve capital return on these assets. So returning as much capital to the balance sheet at the optimal point in time over an asset depreciation schedule, that becomes a very, very big motivation with the more assets that you have. And of course, as I said, enabling this autonomous asset refresh where a system tells me when it's time to refresh as opposed to me trying to figure out when it's time to refresh all these assets on the Edgenet. So we're excited about the EdgeOps V1 prototype because we've actually implemented it. We took RFID tags provided by Trilliot, programmed them with all the relevant asset information, and literally this stuff is going out onto the Edgenet as fully integrated, decentralized, immutable asset record tracking. And so where we take the project next is a wide open space. We would love to talk more with the Riot community about this and be able to explore other possible use cases for EdgeOps. And before I kind of close, and thanking the sponsors at Riot for having me today and being able to briefly introduce you to EdgeOps, I also want to announce that EDJX has launched its first annual Edge Developer Survey. Awesome data that was co-developed with Topio Research, which you can now download today at edgex.io/serverless developer survey 2021. This is the first annual. This is a baseline for what developers are thinking about at the edge and IoT, and we're excited to share that data and talk to the community about the implications of that information. Thank you very much for your time today. Open to any questions you might have. I can't hear you, Caroline, if you're speaking.
Sorry, yep, just realized. Thanks so much, John. Great presentation. First question here, what does EDJX think of helium and putting proof of coverage on the blockchain?
So I'm generally, because a lot of the research and development in EDJX began in blockchain, I'm a natural philosophical fan of blockchain. Where we ran into some challenges in the blockchain context of things is the push-pull dynamic between giving up on the value of blockchain in being in consensus versus the private blockchain where you kind of lose some of the purpose of what blockchain represents. I think there's a happy medium between those two things. I think that's where we landed at EDJX. It's a little bit of a hybrid approach. We didn't build EDJX using blockchain technology. We built it with DAG. It's a DAG-based decentralized ledger technology. So I think there's a happy medium, and all of those technologies, distributed ledger technologies, should be explored to their full extent.
Thanks, John. Where can we learn more about EdgeOps?
Well, this is, believe it or not, this is the first time we've exposed it to the world. So if you email me at john@edgex.io, would love to get you into the prototype. It is in a prototype state at this stage. We're not releasing it out to the public at this stage. It's very much research. So, what we're looking for with EdgeOps is collaborators that can help, build to the data records, potentially, attach other kinds of data records to the Edgenet, and help to, battle test it and beat it up as much as possible, as we as developers love to do.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. We appreciate, and I did put your email in right there in the chat. Thank you so much, John. We'll be back in just a minute with Karthik from Schaeffler Group USA. You can find John and his team at the EdgeX table at 5 p.m. So stick around to engage with them. Thanks again, John.
Thanks a lot. Take care.